You are listening to the Real Men Feel Show with your hosts Andy Grant and Appio Hunter. Real Men Feel is all about encouraging men to allow and express all of their emotions. Despite what you may have been taught, all emotions do serve you. Real Men Feel is committed to opening up discussions that most men aren't having, but you certainly don't need to be a man to join us. The Real Men Feel podcast is produced live every Tuesday at 8 p.m. Eastern for your growth and enjoyment. You can find more information about the Real Men Feel movement at realmenfeel.org. Come back often and feel free to add the podcast to your favorite RSS feed or subscribe on iTunes by visiting realmenfeel.org/iTunes. You can also follow us on Twitter at realmenfeel.org and at facebook.com/realmenfeelshow. All links mentioned in each episode are in the show notes found on the blog at realmenfeel.org. This is a weekly program, and your comments, feedback, and participation are welcome during the live show and anytime in the Facebook group, on Twitter, or at realmenfeel.org. Now, let's get into this week's show. Hello, and welcome to this edition of Real Men Feel. I'm your host, Andy Grant. With me, as always, is my co-host and friend, Appio Hunter.
Hey, Andy.
And if you're watching us on YouTube, you may notice there's like other weird faces here too. So this is what I'll call a very special episode of Real Men Feel. It's not when Bobby Brady gets STDs or anything, but it is when I'm calling this Real Men React. We've got a gathering of men who are part of the private Real Men Feel Facebook group to react to just the onslaught of sexual harassment charges that have been coming on. It's been 2 months. That's all it's been. We're recording this on December 5th, and it was October 5th that the first New York Times investigation into Harvey Weinstein went public, talking about all the sexual harassment, assault charges dating back to 1990. And since that time, it has gone on to include, and this is just going to be a partial list of men that have been called out: James Levine, Matt Lauer, Charlie Rose, who always seemed creepy to me. I don't know, but yeah, Charlie Rose is like a creepy dude. I don't know how he lasted as long as he did. Glenn Thrush, he's a reporter. Russell Simmons, I did not know that. Jeffrey Tambor, Senator Al Franken. That's been the hardest one for me. I like Al Franken. He's freaking funny. It's like,
yeah, that one is a bit of a surprise.
Yeah, but even like the whole staged photo thing, and like, does a comedian get permission? Like, I'm trying to be funny, and it wasn't funny. Oh, forgive me. I know. Oh, so my constant reaction to this whole thing has just been like, well, what the fuck? First, like, how outlandish, like Weinstein with his whole routine of, meet me in my bathroom and, how about a massage? Like, I was just like, thought it was so like sleazy, it was hilarious, but then just keeps going. And I get, if I was on the other end of that, I would not find it hilarious. But, as this keeps going, and it's in politics, it's in Hollywood, it's in reporters, it's just, and there's no end in sight. Like, what comes up for you? What's been going on for you? Like, Appio, what do you? What's your?
It's interesting because what I've noticed is that the backlash seems to be more so against industry figures, whether it is in Hollywood, whether it is in tech and the VC world, in the corporate world, and not just Hollywood, but also just in television and everything else, which by extension, I guess, is Hollywood. But the one place where you still do not see any backlash, with one exception, which is the exception of Al Franken, and that's in politics. Because in reality, this whole conversation, everything started with our wonderful president grabbing women's pussies. And there still has been no backlash to that. Same thing, we have somebody who is essentially a child molester who was dating teenage girls when he was in his 30s, potentially being elected to the Senate in Alabama. And so in the world of politics, it seems like there still is a level of immunity that's actually there. But everybody else, there's absolutely accountability. I mean, I was going to say the chickens are coming home to roost. So since it just came out. The chickens are coming home to roost. And I'm honestly thrilled. I'm shocked and disappointed in some of the people that I've seen, who have been accused and who eventually have had their careers come crashing down. I'm not happy to see any of that. I really am not. I don't rejoice in seeing anybody's life completely being ripped apart, falling apart. And yet at the same time, I'm also very happy to see how there is this shift in perception, there's a shift in this conversation, and it is a complete and total paradigm shift. So I'm happy to see that, because now we can truly speak up without fear of, whatever, all the fears that we had in the past. So that I'm happy to see.
Anyone else?
I agree with that completely. I think it's an interesting juxtaposition to see some of the things that are happening, though. I mean, I've had people talk about the difference between musicians, where you expect this kind of behavior in the music world, and some of that behavior comes from the people that actually want it. That's why they're there to meet them. Mm-hmm. And then you see it in Hollywood, where there's people that are trying to get into the industry, or trying to, put themselves farther up the ladder, and they're being taken advantage of in these situations. And then you see it in politics, where the backlash is only from the people on the opposite party side. People mm-hmm. on the side with that party are much happier to put a pedophile in office than a Democrat.
Right. Yeah, that's the shocking part.
Mm-hmm. So I kind of think, Trump not feeling a backlash is what opened the door. And like all the women that were ignored, what was it? Was it over 20 that had him, made charges against him as a candidate?
8 formally. I know of 8 that have been formally made charges against him, or accusations against him, rather, while he was an actual candidate. And those 8 still remain very adamant about it.
Right.
And yes, there is that piling up and blame the victim. And that's especially true in politics. And that just kind of speaks to the nature of our politics and how toxic it's become in our country.
And there is a congressman just retired today. I saw in the news, and I intentionally don't watch the news every day, but last minute issue, John Cronin something. Anyone following that?
Mm-mm.
All right, so a congressman has been charged, and he's stepping down, and it was sexually harassing his own staff. So he's going away.
And I just want to call out to everybody else on the other side. So Bill Clinton,
right?
Anthony Weiner,
mm-hmm.
John F. Kennedy. So let's go back a little ways and and start on a baseline here with what we're talking about is a systemic issue that is unique to this beautiful patriarchy that we've had in the United States and in Western culture for the last couple thousand years, where mm-hmm. power differential, more power equals more access to whatever. And that's, I think, Appio, I resonate with you. It's like about time.
Yeah.
And scary as hell.
Yeah.
To actually feel it. Be in it and be witnessing like, whoa, it's coming apart at the seams.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting to see how quickly things have changed in the confidence that women have in coming out with this stuff too. Because there's a new, I think it was a new paradigm shift I mentioned that you had seen in my writings on Facebook, that women are actually finally coming out and being able to talk about this. And I think the Me Too, the hashtag Me Too thing has really brought that to the forefront and given them the ability to realize that, hey, there's other women out here who will give me the support I need to say these things.
Right. Yeah, that's the positive side of the double-edged sword of social media. The internet was hailed as this great thing that would bring us all together, but we've seen that it has the other side that can divide us. But it's good to see that with social media being able to be used as this powerful tool to give some of these parties, some of these people that were getting away in a consequence-free environment. And I'm a big believer in when you believe there's no consequences, big or small situations, that lends itself so much to the abuse of power. So, the way Trump warps reality around him like this black hole is the problem. He plays the fake news thing so well, like a maestro, like a master, where, he can bend this truth where it's like people just give him this immunity. It's staggering, but I'm hoping that will collapse under its own weight, especially with everything that's piling on and with how it's hitting all these celebrities and different people. I'm just hoping that the sheer weight of all of this comeuppance will finally even crack through his seemingly impenetrable shell of anti-reality.
Well, yeah, and I think part of another benefit of all of this is that we see, if we're truly honest with ourselves, all of the institutions, that includes the media, that includes, the traditional media or whatever, every institution in this country has in some way, shape, or form contributed to the overall disenfranchisement of the population. And so the backlash against the media, the backlash against so many institutions in our country, it's because they were all sleeping in the same bed. It was an orgy to an extent. And so many people, of everyday people, are getting so tired of not being heard, not being included, that this is now, it's like, I'm finally going to speak up. And Trump's supposedly, impenetrable shell is a direct result of all of these institutions all propping each other up and all contributing to this whole mess that we have now. And now we see it all starting to crumble. And yes, I agree with what you said, Anthony. There is going to be a point where even that shell, even that impenetrable shield, if you will eventually crumble as well. It's just it's currently at the core of it all.
But as men, I want to ask you guys, I want to put it out to you guys. As men, are you feeling like this dichotomy being torn in two directions? First of all, there's that line, and I don't know if you saw The Dark Knight, that movie where the one character, the Harvey Dent character, says you either die a hero or live long enough to see yourself become the villain. And that keeps echoing in my head. Kevin Spacey, love that guy. Love Kevin Spacey. Used to. Danny Masterson, I loved him on the 70s show. Louis C.K. Take My Beats Out My Heart, man. I love just all Jeffrey Tambor, for God's sakes. I love that guy. Every day it's like another, and you're just, oh my God, what have you done? But it's like, I still love this guy, but now it's like, you're torn in this direction, but you're like, no, you shouldn't be doing this. So it's as a man, it's, you start feeling, at least for me, you start feeling responsible. And I've written blog posts about being your brother's keeper. And I think that we're sorely lacking in that. I think that the big thing with improving, I think my big thing is, a big takeaway is, improving relationships with women has to start with improving relationships between men. We need to keep each other accountable. And, they're talking about in all these reports I'm reading that the big killer of men is isolation. And the big cause of aberration in behavior and mentality for men is isolation. And that isolation, idle hands breeds horrible things. That's the devil's workshop, right? As I said, but an idle man with no friends in isolation will become aberrant. And, if we're not holding each other accountable and saying, dude, what are you doing, to our friends or to our loved ones who are men? If we're not holding them and keeping them in a task, and they're doing the same for us, we get crazy. Like, I just don't know how to say it, but.
Good job. Nice, Anthony.
Yeah, and it's really difficult to see it happening with people that you really look up to, when it's actors, when it's politicians that maybe you voted for, when it's anybody that was famous for something else besides this. You're not going to feel this way if it's Jeffrey Dahmer, or you're not going to feel this way if it's Charles Manson, people that are already famous for horrible things. But the people that you look up to because of what they do, again, it's going to take a shift in a lot of us to do this. And we have to start recognizing women as they want to be seen, as sexual beings and not sexual objects. And that's a huge difference in the way the world is working. And I think it's starting to see a light of change, just a little bit.
That's a great point. That helps, because I really wanted to talk about, I don't know how I'm supposed to act. Thank God I'm married, because I don't know how I would date or meet people. Is this so systemic that every man has been sexually harassing people?
I know. I've gotten to the point where I don't know how to flirt anymore. I'm just going to stare at her until she agrees to marry me.
Right. And seriously, because I saw someone down south, I think it might have been around the Roy Moore stuff, but saying, well, how do we go courting then?
Okay, I need to go courting.
Slow it down, though. Slow it down. And now, okay, so Andy, how do you go courting?
Yeah, I don't have to worry about it.
He's out of the game.
If really were. Like, that's the thing. It's like, slow
I would
down.
be so confused. Like,
and that's one of those memes that I've heard. Well, we're taking away the romance from stuff. So is romance mean non-consensual?
No.
So I know I've never raped anybody, but I'm sure I've harassed people. I just because I don't know what it's meant in the past, and I'm not even sure what it means today.
Cool. And I think for me, that's been a big deal. Like, getting in touch with I'm responsible for this too. Yeah. Like, when I look back at, who I was in college and who I was before college, and like what I didn't think about, what I wasn't conscious of.
Yeah.
And I think that's a lot, like, the door's open so that we can look into our closets as men and get like, oh shit, this is the impact that I've been having.
Yeah.
Consciously or unconsciously.
Well, I think
for a lot of us, I think it's unconscious.
Yeah, I think the tough part is that you can't really look at this and go, okay, let's treat them the way we want to be treated, because as men, we want different things than they do, a lot of times. And you can't, but you have to try to figure out what's respectful in their views and what is, classy in their views, in your behaviors, and not necessarily try to think of it from your own perspective. And that's the tough part. And I think that's where we have to really start paying attention to what they're saying on social media.
Yeah. And
actions are that we're doing.
Yeah. It's interesting because a friend of mine the other day who, honestly, he's been in kind of a dry spell with women, and he works in a public place where he kind of interacts with customers and customer service. And he said, there was this girl the other day, he's talking to me and a couple of their friends. There was this girl the other day, man, I just wanted to go up and tell her, like, you're beautiful. And I'm like, dude, don't do that. I don't know. It's like, don't do that. Not just, if you think a woman's beautiful and you're single, go ask her out. Like, just say, hey, would you like to go out sometime? Don't say, hey, I just wanted to tell you you're beautiful. Like, no, like, because I work in Philadelphia, and I walk down the street and I see how women have to walk down the street. Like, they are very guarded. They're very nervous. Like, women need to be like, they don't want to make eye contact. So you gotta kind of just leave them alone. They don't know you. It's, and I don't know if I'm taking it too far, but I mean, it's like women don't want to hear that they're beautiful or like, hey baby, like, and this guy's very respectful. He's a good friend of mine. But it's just like, you know what, dude? Like, if you're going to go all the way and say, hey, and if she says no, then that's it. And that's.
I have to toss something out there, which is, I know that at least in my workplace, it's perfectly safe for me to actually compliment a woman because they all know. It's like, I have a husband. So it's perfectly safe for me to do that. Because when I actually compliment them, I'm not saying it in any way, shape, or form. I genuinely mean it.
Right.
But at the same time, even I am in that space of like, I need to be very conscious of what I say. And instead of saying, using words which could potentially be triggers or challenges, instead use words which are more emotionally neutral. So I've started to become even more conscious of the emotional resonance of the words that I'm using to make sure that they are emotionally, at the very least, emotionally neutral words for us.
And I just default to not complimenting anybody. Like, I
don't want to live in that world. That's too far.
I default to not insulting women so much that even if I know we could be at like a woman's baby shower and I won't even say congratulations on being pregnant because I'm just like, you don't want to ever. I don't know. Maybe I'm overcautious.
So are you now living in fear, which is an entirely different, uncomfortable place you'll eventually find? I don't know.
I don't know. I just figure I give them a gift, and that's congratulations. I don't know. So it's like, but it's interesting. It's like, yes, are we taking it too far? That's the question.
Well, I think one of the things that may happen as a result of all of this right now is this may give women the empowerment to tell you when you're saying something that's out of line, or just to say, you know what, I don't appreciate that, and hopefully not fear the backlash from you for saying it. But I do think that. One of the things I've always felt is that women should be told at least once a day that they're pretty or that they're beautiful, and that we men are horrible about doing it, and we're horrible in the ways that we do it. And I think that they still appreciate it. I don't think, if you walk up to somebody and say, hey, I love your hair, they're not going to be freaked out about that. But, the cat calls down the street, and the whistle.
Difference.
That's a huge difference in your attitude coming across to them.
Yeah, absolutely. And I will say something about the whole, going to one extreme and then to the other extreme. When you're holding a pendulum in a particular position for a long period of time, when you release it, it will swing to the opposite extreme briefly. But as you allow that pendulum to swing, and rather than trying to hold it in one place or the other place, eventually it's going to right itself, and it will right itself much more quickly than trying to say, this is right, this is right, this is right. Just allow the pendulum to swing, and eventually it will reach that state of balance where we don't have to be afraid of anything, and we can speak openly. And yes, we can say, this is what works for me, this does not work for me.
Yeah, because that's one of the challenges I've had. If I'm Al Franken and I'm writing a skit with someone I'm on tour with the USO with, and I'm like, oh, I'm going to kiss her in the skit. And we do that. And she never says, hey, don't do that. That's not cool. And we do it every night because it's in the sketch. Then I feel bad for him for being punished years later. And other things have happened. But this one thing, being punished years later. But if you, as the other person involved in this, didn't say, hey, don't do this. Like, no means no. But if no one ever says no, like, how as a man, do you know what the hell to do?
Yeah. I think in a lot of cases, though, too, hopefully this will change, but in the past, women have been afraid to speak what's on their minds.
Thank you,
yes. Because there's just been too much of a backlash from. I mean, look at Brock Turner. What's going on with him? Guy got 6 months, in jail for raping somebody, and now he's trying to get his conviction eliminated and erased. It's that affluenza, that white privilege that rich kids have, and that's the results that women are used to seeing from their protestations.
Yes.
Yeah, so it really is a lot of things are blurring. So it's the patriarchy and privilege of being white, middle-aged, men, powerful, rich, controlling the gateway to careers, to success, to whatever it might be, that are finally clamping down on people.
Yep.
Yeah. And we still see some of that backlash taking place, again, in the world of politics, where, we see in Alabama how incredibly toxic it's become. We see our own president just lashing out at anybody who calls him out for his behavior. It is to completely turn it around and make it about that. So yeah, we're still seeing elements of that, but the backlash, I think, is definitely crumbling. And we're seeing a lot less of it now.
In my experience, any sort of personal growth expansion requires awareness. And
absolutely,
the president is the least aware human being I've ever seen in my life. So it's kind of neat that he's there as an example.
Careful about your projections, Andy. Careful about those projections. I can't determine whether that guy is the least self-aware person I've ever known, but I can certainly project a whole lot of shit onto him out of my own shadow. Yeah?
Yeah, that's true. It's a good call out. That is a very, very good call out.
Yeah, he is the embodiment of shadow in America. I mean, he's all the dark shit that we've been sitting on for all of this time. And I've got Trump voters in my family, in my immediate family, and almost Trump voters in my immediate family. And the look in their eyes when, and these are all men, of course, and the look in their eyes when he says the shit he says, it's like, wow, I wish I could say that.
That's exactly it. Yeah. That's exactly it. It's our shadows. The shadows of these other people are reacting like, yes, I get to do this too because you're doing it and you're the most powerful man in the country. That means it's okay. He's the enabler in chief. And that's what really scares me is that it's that he's giving this out for this lizard brain id that all men bear this burden of, this caveman Neanderthal, like unga bunga, hit the woman over the head with a club and drag her back to your cave, and he's given this ultimate seat of power. So that's my concern. And frankly, I think a lot of Trump voters like, oh my God, what happened? Especially I think women voters who voted for Trump were like, is it really worth it that the stock market's going up? My money's okay, and we're financially better, but is that worth all of this darkness that he's enabling. So it's just, I think some people are having buyer's remorse, but I don't know. I don't know if there's enough of it, but
I have to say that yes, it is worth it because it's also enabled these women to step forward. It has enabled that paradigm shift. So yes, all of this dark shit which is coming out, guess what? There's a huge blazing spotlight on it right now.
Yeah.
And so it's enabling so many conversations, including this one, to take place that in the end, this is a good thing.
Yeah.
It's a
It's
painful
messy,
process,
but it's good.
but it will have a good result.
Yes.
Yeah. We're crossing through the abyss as a collective, as a society. And, some people think the abyss is really cool, and this is where we belong.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. And it's an exorcism, and exorcisms they're never pretty, right? I mean, you're exorcising all this darkness, so it's it gets better before it gets worse before it gets better, right? So
there were a couple comments in our private Real Men Feel Facebook group that I'd like to share because Kenny, you wrote this talking about the paradigm shift happening. It's just the beginning. It's long overdue. If you're a man who has treated women as objects or possessions to use as you please, your day of reckoning has come. And a lot of guys in the group, agreed. One response was this. My deepest concern is that comments like Ken's here from the heart are even being perceived as threatening. There is a witch hunt happening, and God forbid you say, not all men. This whole thing is sad. Some of these men, I fear, are being falsely targeted to balance the scales, but how do I know? Defending innocence without a trial is a surefire way to receive judgment and become one of them.
And the not all men thing, that's a really good place to interject this here because I was just thinking it. Their response from women is, we know. We already know that. You don't have to say that. And if you haven't treated women like shit, you don't really have anything to fear here because they're not coming after us. It's like everybody who has a gun's not going to have to give it up now. They're not coming for them.
Exactly. It's like the people it's like the people backlashing on all lives matter because of Black Lives Matter. Like, no kidding. They're not saying white lives don't matter or all lives don't matter. They're just saying Black lives are more at risk.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's the thing is that, yes, women, like you said, Kenny, yes, women know that it's not all men. It's just, I don't know. That's the thing. It's everybody gets their back up and it's.
Yeah. So is it more defensive, scared men are saying it's not all men, and
hell yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think they get offended because they actually feel that women are starting to look at all of us differently now. And some of them I'm sure are. Some of them probably have not been fond of us for a long time because of some of the experiences they've had, but they're not all looking at us that way either. So it's not all women.
Well, and have been. That's the other thing here is I think that there are a lot of good men who are kind of waking up to the reality that women have been existing in for so long that it's just that's part of the denial too. Not all men is I don't really want to acknowledge that my wife has experienced that. I don't really want to acknowledge that my mother experienced that. And I don't really want to acknowledge that my 11-year-old daughter is going to, or already is experiencing that.
Yeah. So, and instead of feeling threatened, maybe we should be part of the solution.
Hells yeah.
And we take action. That's it. I mean,
so part of it is being the change. Sorry, go ahead.
How can we as individual men be the change?
I like to say my personal mantra is I am the change I wish to experience. It's not be the change because that almost creates a level of separation. It's like putting the responsibility in somebody else. So instead, I take responsibility and I say, I am the change. I am responsible. I am the one who will act in a way. And I will be responsible exclusively for myself. I'm not going to worry about anybody else being responsible. I will. And what happens is that it reaches a critical mass when every single person says, I take responsibility for myself and I don't care about anybody else. They can be responsible for them. I will be responsible for me. What eventually happens is that comes together. That comes together and it ends up happening because we're focused on being responsible human beings for ourselves and being responsible for ourselves.
But see, I think all of us...
Is there a concrete action? Like really I'm an idiot. Tell me how to behave going forward.
A conscious action can simply be being conscious and aware of your thoughts and what you say. It can be as simple as that. But
See, I don't think that what women are expecting from us is not guys like you and I, all of us in this group. We're already responsible for our own actions, and we're all, adults, and we're respectful to women. We all have these qualities already. They're not looking for us to change that. What they're looking for is for us to be our brother's keepers. We need to call out the behaviors that we see in others. And I can only be responsible for my own actions, but I can also point out the inappropriate actions of others. That's what they need from us.
I completely agree.
Here's when we know that it's really changed. I've been thinking about this a lot, and I'm printing something off to hold up in front of the camera too. Here's when we'll know that it's really changed. There are dozens of men out there who have witnessed, we've been talking about Trump, who have witnessed things that Trump has participated in and done. When those men start coming forward,
right,
this has changed. And that's what it's going to take, because right now I even feel this. I can feel this in my own body, but I feel it in the whole, like, all of maledom. There's this like guardedness, right? Oh, when is another woman going to come forward to take down somebody else like Al Franken? When is another woman going to come? There it is again. That's that sick thinking. Mm-hmm. So it's going to be everybody who's like, no, bro, not okay anymore.
Right.
That'll be different. And I'm sometimes conscious of my own shit. I'm sometimes conscious of the stuff that comes out of my mouth. I'm sometimes conscious of my actions. There's also a key in here about like shutting up to listen to the impact that I have on other people around me. And whether it's women giving me that feedback or men giving me that feedback, it's like, oh, fuck, I didn't see that. I didn't see that I was having that impact, and learning to take responsibility for that too.
Yes.
Okay. Soapbox off.
Yeah. And I mean, it really is this thing where we need to police each other. I mean, and I know that sounds harsh to say that, and I don't want to make it sound like we're in this police state of men where we have to like report on each other like it's Big Brother now. But yeah, I mean, it's been a while since I've read, King, Warrior, Magician, Lover, but it's this, there it is. But it's this, this mature masculinity. And if we in this group, say if the five of us here, we have this gift of self-awareness, we have this gift of mature masculinity, isn't it beholden upon us to go out and teach men who may not have the benefit of whatever brought us to this self-awareness, to spread that self-awareness and to serve them and serve women by extension,
Absolutely.
So we have this responsibility, and I'm big into heroism and I'm big into the heroism movement. And it's just like, you need to go out and step out of your comfort zone and say, you know what? Yeah, guys, this isn't cool. This isn't great, and you're going to be ridiculed. People are going to be like, oh, what are you, a feminist? Blah. I hate labels. And you call me a feminist. Well, yeah, maybe I am, whatever. But the thing is, this isn't right what you're doing. I see we don't want to call you out on it. And, that's how you help. And that's what we need to do. It's
the weekend after Thanksgiving, I went on a hike up a mountain in New Hampshire with a couple buddies. And it was a gorgeous day. There were crowds and people of all ages just going up and down the mountain. And I'm talking to people and smiling and changing stories and, talking to strangers. And a couple guys I'm with are like, man, yoga pants are the best thing ever invented. And I'm like, what the fuck what? Where's that coming from? What are you talking about? And I'm like, wow. Like, I'm looking at people in their eyes, talking to them. And obviously that's not what they're doing. And I felt I didn't say anything to them because I felt, oh, I'm the misfit here. I'm talking to humans. I'm not checking out bodies. And I didn't say anything. But that was the first time I noticed like a comment like that. I don't think even 2 weeks earlier I would have even heard that or thought about it. So is that part of the, should I have called them out? Should I, what do you like? What
call them in?
What's the line? Call them in.
Call them in. Call them out. Call them close. Right. I value the people in my life who have opened my eyes to stuff that I wasn't seeing in a loving way. in a compassionate way. And, when I work with my 13-year-old son, self-respect is like the core of everything that we talk about. Like, hey, you can be like those guys out there without self-respect. But here's what self-respect looks like. You respect yourself enough to honor the people around you. You respect yourself enough to give dignity to the people who you're with, and holding that. And like when I have leaned in, like, hey, dude, like, I hear what you're saying. And maybe the woman that you're talking about didn't hear you, but maybe that woman over there who just watched what you were doing did. So maybe you didn't impact the woman you were actually ogling, but what about the witness? Or what about the boy who was like 10 feet away listening to it? So what does self-respect look like?
Yeah.
And what do we want? What do we want as a culture of men? How do we want to feel in the world? And how do I want the women in my life to feel?
I'm glad that you brought up the witness, because a thought that just occurs to me is, a commitment that I've made is to not be a silent witness anymore. If I'm a witness to something, to not be silent. Mm-hmm. And whether it is a private conversation, which is my personal preference, or whether it is, screaming it from the rooftops, it doesn't matter. No more being a silent witness. So that's a great point, Boyson. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, and it's okay to be attracted to women. It's okay to appreciate the female form, but there's that fine line of like, oh man, yoga pants. Like, come on. It's just, it's immaturity versus an appreciation and a respect for women. You can still be attracted. Men can, I know, Andy, it seems weird because, it's like, can I talk amongst my friends about like how hot a girl is? Sometimes guys, that's just how guys are wired. So I think we need to kind of give ourselves a bit of a break, but we also need to give women a break too. We need to understand like the difference between being appreciative of the female form and acknowledging that men have this hard wiring, that we still haven't evolved out of. But it's also like there's limits, and there's that self-limiting, that conscious, that awareness, that again, that mature masculinity where you're like, okay, enough. And again, if you have enough good relationships that you're cultivating with other men in your life, when you need that other person to be a stopgap, when you need checks and balances from other men, they're there in case you're in a place in your life where you're in a dark place and your shadow's looming. We're like, okay, dude, enough. So it's.
Yeah, you bring up a good point, and I think that I've actually heard some women, or read the text anyway, of some women discussing little things like this, and they say, how far do we go with our complaints? Are we getting so nitpicky that we lose credibility at some point? Because they don't expect us to not look at them. They appreciate the fact that we think they're beautiful, and I think they don't want the groping, and they don't want the rude comments. I think that they do expect us as men to appreciate them.
I have to say, kind of have a laugh at my own expense right now, because when you talked about the yoga pants, I honestly was thinking of, they think that yoga pants are really comfortable. That's honestly what went through my mind. So I'm like, oh, cool. I might just be heading down to Lululemon, get myself a pair of yoga pants so I can be more comfortable.
That is not what they meant.
I'm understanding it more now. But,
those are referred to as meggings now, I believe, for the men.
Oh, that's new for me.
That's awesome.
Meggings.
Have any of you guys heard of like, I don't even know what it stands for. It's like MGTOW.
Yes.
I don't. What does that stand for?
I haven't heard it.
It's like it reminds me of like, remember Al Bundy on the Married with Children, like the Women's Haters Club. It's like, it's this manifestation of like, well, if women don't like me and women aren't attracted to me or I can't get a girlfriend, then you know what? Guess what? Screw you. I hate you all and you just suck. And there's this conspiracy against the sacred masculine. And I'm like, come on, man. Like it's just, everything's got to be a conspiracy theory now if something's wrong in your life. It's just, no, dude, just be better. instead of looking for a scapegoat. Like it's the United States of scapegoating. I can't stand it anymore. It's like instead of complaining and looking for, oh, chemtrails are horrible, and the lining inside potato chips are making frogs, gay, and it's crazy. Like Alex Jones.
There's our next show.
Yeah, there you go. It's like Alex Jones crap. Like it's just, I don't get it. It's like we live in this. We need to stop scapegoating. We need to start looking at each other, and it's just looking at ourselves critically. And I think that is what Trump's America is. What we're devolving, and we're unlearning how to do that, unfortunately. So it's I don't know. I despair sometimes of getting through it, but again, it's talking to you guys who recenter me and get me back to again, this is the darkest before the dawn. It's the no birth comes without pain, right? So it's I'm just hoping for the level.
Pain is there, suffering is optional.
Right. Okay.
So Louis C.K.'s name got mentioned earlier, and I want to talk a little about him because so I'm in the Screen Actors Guild, and this year I'm part of the nominating committee. I get sent every movie in the world to see who's worthy of being nominated for awards. So nice. I got his movie, Daddy, I Love You, before it got pulled. Wow. So if people don't realize that Louis C.K. directed his first. Is it his first film? No, he's done a lot of TV. It might be his first film, and it has to do with sexual harassment. It's a big part of the plot. And for years, I'm not a comedian, but I'm from Boston. Louis is from Boston. I've heard for years that Louis liked to jerk off in front of women.
Wow, you've heard that?
Yeah. And then it came out, and it was, he finally came out and, yeah, I did it. And part of his event was since I wasn't touching them, I thought this was okay. And then it became I thought it was this weird, sad, pathetic thing. I thought somehow it was always a joke. Hey, want to see something funny? And he jerks off, and they're yeah, gross, and they leave. But they all felt trapped. And they felt they had to sit here and watch him jerk off. And now in part of his comments, he's I didn't realize that. I'm a fucking idiot. It was horrible. I'm sorry. And his movie got yanked. So I watched it a couple weeks ago.
Intended.
Yeah. One of the characters in this movie does the same thing. Every time they talk about this woman, he's pretending to jerk off. Every time they mention this hot actress. And I'm he's doing this. He puts in his movie, and it's like the criminal wanted to be caught.
Exactly.
Yeah. Just I know I'm bad. I'm going to make one of my characters do the bad thing I'm doing because I want to stop somehow, or I want to be shamed. But I wish the movie got released because it's got Louis C.K.'s character, his daughter is a high school senior, and someone that Louis looks up to as a mentor is a film director, and he's in his 70s, and he's known for going after teenage girls. Wow. And he starts going after Louis' teenage girl, and Louis do I stop this? Will it help my career? And it touches on so many things going on, and no one but me will ever see it.
Wow.
But it's powerful. It's neat. I hope it does get out. It's not because it's a great cinema, or it's not. I wasn't going to put up for any awards, but it was very timely, and it's just sad that
almost autobiographical in a way.
Well, very much, yeah.
Like a cry for help. Like somebody stop me, like you said. I mean, and it's crazy because in his comedy, and I can relate. When he talks about in his one special where he's we're gonna need, and it gets better for chubby guys. You know what I mean? And I relate because I related to that part in his comedy because I grew up. I wasn't very popular with ladies. I was always kind of overweight, and it's maybe that's what. And Louis always jokes about being like that, but that's true. Maybe. There was some aberration that he developed as being his words, vaguely heavy with no face, don't worry. As soon as her circumstances meet up with your looks, you're going to be great. So I don't know, maybe I know what it's like to be a chubby guy who's kind of rejected by the girls. But at some point you have to, I did in my life, you can't just go out and say, you know what, screw it. It's women's fault. I'm going to go out and I'm going to jerk off in front of them. You can't.
And it's it's funny. I'm a comedian. I can try anything, and if I get a laugh, I don't I have prevented 2 rapes in my life because I saw women saying no and guys not giving a shit. I've never. I don't know what I would do if I had a friend that liked to jerk off in front of women or at a party, and I take that back. I did have a friend in college who liked to just whip it out and would show off his balls and just thought that was his hello, how you doing? And I thought it was pathetic and sad, but I never talked to him about it.
I wonder, having seen the movie and after this stuff came to light about Louis C.K., I wonder how you would have viewed those scenes and that kind of stuff in the movie had you not known about this happening.
Good question.
How do you think you would have viewed that movie had you not known that information?
That's a good question.
Yeah, I mean, I would have taken it as funny. Like, again, that character doing it was like, well, he's a blue. I didn't look up to him, but I just took it for what it was. It's a funny scene. There's a guy doing that. I certainly wouldn't think like, oh, that poor other female character is having.
Yeah, because you see it as fiction. You don't see it as reality.
Right. Mm-hmm. And then to learn that everything that his, all of his fictional things are based in reality. So it was a weird thing to watch.
We're blind to the water we swim in, right? Until we're not anymore.
How's the water? The one thing about the fish, it's like, how's the water? What's water? Yeah, exactly.
It's hard. We can't see it until, holy shit. And I have a feeling that there are a number of people like Al Franken, that seemed like his response too, is like, wow, yeah, I thought that was funny.
Yeah.
Once. And now, shit. Here we are. Yeah.
And Al Franken is that he's owning up to it. He's not like, trying to blame the victim or anything like that. It's like, you know what? I'm sorry. I'm glad you guys brought this to my attention. This is what I was thinking at the time. If I need to face the consequences, I face the consequences.
See, that's the thing. I hope so. Like, I hope when they go on the apology tour that they're not thinking that like, okay, I'm going to get out of this. I'm just going to apologize out the wazoo. And then like, you still need consequences. And Franken, it broke my heart because I always looked up to him. And I had just watched him having, what's her name? That one comedian. She sat down with an interview with him. I'm drawing a blank on her name. But anyway, she has the dark hair, Jewish comedian.
Sarah Silverman.
Sarah Silverman. Yes. Thank you. Sarah Silverman just had this thing where I love you, America. And she sat down with Al Franken. She, sits down with all these different people. And I'm like, I love you, Al. And it's like, I can't single out like Roy Moore and say, no, he sucks because he's a Republican and, he should be taken down. Like, I need to say the same thing to Al if I'm really committed to helping to protect women as a man.
Even Bill Clinton.
Yeah, Bill Clinton.
Absolutely. Absolutely, yes.
Versus Donald Trump. Like, I can't take one and you can't have my cake and eat it too. I can't take one and leave the other.
You've mentioned mature masculine a few times. You talked about consciousness awareness. So that's always changing. So we're all at distinct levels of our own personal awareness right now and our own maturity level of our masculinity. So can you punish yourself, judge yourself for what you thought and did 10, 20 years ago? Like that's a problem I have, right? Things I know not to do today. Oh, crap, I did those before. What do I do about that?
What's that, Poison?
Moral relativism, applying today's moral values to what was past. And at some level, it's just about how much we are complicit in and how much we're willing to let go. And I think that's what shifted. Like, there have always been people, so I said JFK, so let's like really knock down some heroes. Martin Luther King was shitty to his wife. Shitty. Gandhi was shitty to women. Right?
Right.
So let's knock down some heroes and say, yeah, they still changed history. They still had this impact. Yes. And there were people then who were pissed off at JFK for doing the shit that he was doing.
Right.
I think some of it has to come down to if you're going to criticize yourself for your past behaviors, you have to look at the situation that you're in now. Do you still know the people that were affected by your behaviors? Can you contact them and can you honestly have that conversation with them and say, you know what? I'm so sorry for what I did back then, and it may not be as important to them as it is to you, but they'll appreciate that you can get it off your chest,
And acknowledge it, absolutely. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I think it's also an important reminder to all of us that, the now is the most important time. And what we do now is going to be the most critical thing that we do. What's happened has happened. If we've behaved boorishly, I honestly don't know. I mean, certainly not towards women, maybe towards other guys. I don't know. I would like to think that I haven't, but it's entirely possible that I was boorish towards other guys, actually. But what I can say, at least speaking strictly for myself, is right here, right now. If it happened, or if it was interpreted that way, if it's perceived that way, I'm genuinely, truly sorry. But what I do right now is also critically important, and that's what I'm going to be focused on, for sure. So I'm really glad this conversation has been taking place, because it has been so good of reminders, aha moments, epiphanies. It's been great.
Cool. Yeah, we're at the top of the hour, so we're kind of, I know, running out of time for some of our guests tonight. So we'll wrap this up, and I mean, we could continue this conversation again, and maybe we will.
I'd love to.
Yeah. So I love and appreciate you all very much for showing up, for being yourselves, for sharing what you thought. If anyone has a quick parting thought, words of wisdom, now's your chance.
I think what Appio was saying is correct. We have to look at the now. Every one of us is the person we are today, whether we like ourselves or not, based on the experiences we've had in life and what's brought us to this point. You can't go back and change that, but you can learn from it. And you can't apologize for it if you feel it's necessary, or if you think people that you need to talk to feel it's necessary, you can do that. And I think you can only go forward from here.
Thank you, Kenny.
Cool.
Yeah, I would just say, remember, be your brother's keeper. You know, we need each other to be mirrors for each other. When there's a time when your view of yourself is obfuscated, when you can't see yourself clearly, that's what other human beings are for. You know, to be mirrors for each other, to help each other see each other clearly. So men need that greatly. We need to do that and be that for each other as men, and cultivate those relationships and stop seething in isolation and creating these aberrant behaviors. So be there for other guys in your life going forward.
Beautiful.
Nice, Anthony. I will simply say compassion and accountability are not mutually exclusive.
Amen to that.
Yep.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Thank you for this conversation, Andy.
Yeah, thanks.
And thanks.
It doesn't happen if I'm here alone. So, you know, again, thanks. I appreciate you for showing up. Real Men Feel's taking a break for the rest of this year. This is the final show for 2017, but we'll be back bigger, bolder, sexier than ever in 2018, respectfully sexier than ever.
Yes.
In the meantime, check us out at realmenfeel.org. Check out the Facebook group. You can join the private Facebook group and join this cast of characters on a more often basis. And if you're listening to this in the next few days, have a fantastic holiday, Hanukkah and Christmas and New Year's and all the fun stuff. And be good to yourselves.
Be well, friends.
Thank you for listening to Real Men Feel. Until next time, visit realmenfeel.org, join the Real Men Feel group on Facebook, and share what you thought of this show. Please give this podcast a review on iTunes, Google Play, or wherever you are discovering Real Men Feel. Reach out to us at realmenfeel@gmail.com. Learn more about Andy Grant at theandygrant.com and Appio Hunter at appiohunter.com.